Welcome back to Newsmaker Live, and thank you for staying tuned. We're discussing cricket, West Indies cricket in particular. We have with us Cladius, Emmanuel, analyst and commentator, and Terry, finisterre, sports journalist, and many other things. Well, among other things.
I have all my hats in my bag.
You have all. Okay, so you just decide which one you want to wear tonight. But yeah, going back to the performance of the guys. I mean, truly remarkable. The guys, the goal, and Ernest was here a couple of weeks ago, was to make it to the semi-finals. Although people had been touting the team as the favorite, you know, having all the big hitters. You have Gale, you have Pollard, who did not perform to his potential in that tournament. Samuels, who is coming back, and probably we can talk about him coming back into the side, you know, after being out for a couple of years and stuff. Bravo, who has been, you know, up and down. We know that he's very talented, hugely talented. And our youngster Johnson Charles, I mean, he proved his worth with his 84. You know, I was just hoping that he had scored 16 more to get the century. But, I mean, just how have we got to that point? How are we able to get to that point, being what we were, say, 18 months ago?
Well, I think we have made good progress in terms of, as Ernest who has already indicated, the systems that have been put in place. Mm-hmm. There's been a concentration on fitness. You could have seen it out there. The guys look fitter on the field. You could have seen improvement in the fielding standards. You've also had stability in terms of the captaincy of Darren Sammy. Mm-hmm. Of course, there have been the criticism, but Sammy has really developed in the job. It has taken him a while, but you can actually see that he has made progress. He has shaped the leadership in his own fashion, his own style, and he has gotten the support of the senior players. You could see that. You could see there's a nice unit, a nice team spirit. The work ethic is good, the ethos is good, and so generally a lot of these things have really added to create a nice platform for West Indies to perform. Of course, you have had the return of Chris Gale. That has been a major boost to the team as well. So all of these factors have contributed, and of course going into this particular competition with the sort of experience that West Indies possess, with the IPL experience of people like Norine and Pollard and Gale, Bravo, they actually went in billed as, you know, a potential champion, and it took them a while in the competition to get to playing at top class level, but they certainly peaked at the right time, and it was really nice to see the West Indies develop. After being on the receiving end of a lot of poor results. In fact, Sammy actually pointed that out, that whereas before you had a situation where West Indies were winning segments of games, finding themselves into winning positions, and inexplicably, you know, not being able to bring it home. But now there's a great amount of self-belief. There's the confidence in the side. And I think what you have seen as well is a lot of people contributing, not necessarily together, but at vital intervals in different games. And I think that has come together and been a very successful combination.
Now, I was a bit concerned in that semi-final match against Australia when I saw that the guys, you know, they had Australia on the ropes and they were just lackadaisical in the field. You know, an overthrow which should, well, what should have been 1 run ended up as 3 runs because there's an overthrow, and Marlon Samuels was backing up, just kicking the ball around, and the guys ran an extra run. I mean, and it concerned me because I'm like, okay, you're preparing to go into the finals and you have that attitude. Would that mentality and that attitude carry on? And we'd experience the same thing that we have in the past, where we snatch a loss, you know, from the jaws of victory.
People said that about the team going into it. In fact, when the first few overs were being played in the final, people were talking about the fact that perhaps the team had celebrated too too much after the semi-final. But one thing I have to say about this iteration of the West Indies team is a team tends to take on the personality of its captain. And this team, a few years ago, then probably 2 or 3 years ago, I remember that there was an ongoing discussion, and people were making light of the fact that the watchwords that Ernest as the CEO and the president and Dr. Julian Hunt, that the watchwords that they had given for West Indies cricket, pride, commitment, passion, those were being derided, and people were saying, oh, but what about talent, and the Sawan and the Taylor and the Gale, and look how they're treating them, and this and that, and look how these guys have been brought back into the team. Look how Samuels has come back into the team. Look how Gale has been brought back into the team. Look how Narayan has come in. Pollard, who had his own problems with the West Indies Cricket Board, those guys have all been brought back into the fold. And look at the way
they're playing within the system.
Look how the team played throughout this tournament. You had the bowling was inconsistent to start. Darren handled his bowling better and better as the tournament went on. The last 3 matches, the way the bowling was handled in terms of deploying resources was virtually masterful. The use of bowling resources was excellent. The fielding was of a very high standard. Yes, you talk about the isolated overthrow here and the boneheaded Samuels when he tried to catch the no ball, the free hit.
Don't even talk about that.
I mean, they're going to be boneheaded moves. But what you also saw was when things of that nature transpired, you saw the captain upbraiding his players, and not upbraiding his players in just putting his hands up and looking lost. Darren was very vocal on the field in leading his players, and he also had a lot of support from the other senior players. You would see Gale going up to a player and talking to him, to a bowler and giving advice. You would see the likes of Samuels going up and
now that's very refreshing to see. Now, does that mean, is that an indication that these guys are now buying into the system that they resisted for the last couple years?
That's exactly my point. Yeah, that's exactly my point.
And can we expect to see that continue into the future? Because as we discussed during the break, there are other tournaments coming up. There are other not defenses, but competitions that they'd have to participate in.
Just before I let Cladius talk, I mean, the other thing that we have to look at is the fact that over the past 4 or 5 years, the West Indies Cricket Board has deliberately set about building up structures. We've seen the 18 tours, which, I mean, the 18 tours had virtually disappeared.
Right.
We had not seen a second tier of cricket, and there's an argument, and an ongoing argument about whether it makes more sense for us to have more cricket in the region as opposed to taking the second tier of our top cricketers and sending them to play. I think, given the way our cricket works in the region, it makes just as much sense to take our second best set of cricketers and send them off to play against foreign competition. It helps us identify, it helps us get depth, it helps us build a stronger all-around team. And we've seen that coming back into the cricket. We've seen the under-19s, we've seen stronger sponsorship, we've seen, we've seen fitness. And the fitness is not just the men, the fitness is the women too. And the West Indies women's team has really transformed over the past 5 or 6 years. If you looked at the West Indies women 5 or 6 years ago, and you look at this group of West Indies women that played and made the semi-finals.
Well, you just don't want to watch them in comparison to Australia or New Zealand or England.
Our girls are sharp. Our girls in the field, our girls bowling, our girls batting, they look a totally different unit than they did 5 or 6 years ago. And it's all, again, down to leadership, down to management. And leadership not just from the top, but putting the right people in the right places. Otis Gibson, Toby Radford at the academy, Richie Richardson as manager. All of those guys have contributed to building up that team spirit, building up that climate and that atmosphere of success, wanting success, hard work, determination, grit, never say die. I mean, this team is a team that is not... You can have this team on the ropes. You could have this version of the West Indies team, you can have us on the ropes. But we're going to come off and we're going to swing. And it's not going to be anything that, it's going to be a haymaker. It's not going to be a little tap.
Yes, and just on this last point there by Terry, and actually the final game epitomized those qualities because you had West Indies really struggling. In fact, I remember one of the commentators suggesting, I think after about 10 overs, I think it was after the power play, I think we were 14 for 2. The commentator was suggesting, well, at this rate, West Indies after 20 overs will get to 40 odd.
Right. Yeah, I heard that. You know, I heard that.
You know, and so you could have seen the resilience the guys dug deep and really pulled off a tremendous effort. And throughout, as Terry indicated, you got the impression that this is a side, although you have to defend 138, but it would not be a walk in the park. And you know, true to form, the guys delivered brilliantly. But just on the point of the captaincy of that,
right,
I think he has really grown in the job. You ask about whether the senior guys are now buying in. I think they have actually done so because they have seen something is working. Darren Sammy, under a lot of criticism, but obviously having the support of the right people. So in a sense, a fixture in terms of being put in the position to do a job. And these guys, I think they have recognized that if they're going to play for the West Indies, they need to toe the line, get involved in what is happening, to become part of it. And I think they have done that, and you're beginning to see the results coming through. And I think that bodes well for Sammy's future in terms of getting more of these type of results, because I think there's some stability, a good atmosphere is created, and I think it redounds to productivity.
Just
in
one,
the unit.
Just on the point of buying in. I mean, some of these same players you will remember. I think it was under Bennett King, when there was that infamous fitness report, the physio produced a fitness report, which I mean became and spread like wildfire, because you were seeing reports of Sawan, rum and chicken and this and that, and don't want to run, and Shanda Paul shin splints and all sorts of fellas. I mean, all the captain at the time, Sawan at the time, the captain was just not buying into this whole concept of fitness, and they were talking about, oh, we Caribbean people and we don't do this and we don't do that. And I mean, this team, you look at these guys running in the field, and one of the things a lot of people have said is that, and a lot of women have said, they like to see the fellas in their uniforms. No, I mean,
well, it's a different cut. The uniform is a different cut. No. Isn't it?
This West Indies team is the best looking West Indies team.
Terry, I would look good in that uniform as well. Well, not to you anyway. Not to you. But
your wife.
Of course, always. But talking about the continuity, I mean, there's been major upheaval at the top of West Indies cricket. The chairman is going, or president is going. CEO is going. No, Julian Hunt is almost gone. The CEO is gone. You know, the whole structure is changing. Can we see, or can we expect things to change within the team with a new management trying to put a stamp on West Indies cricket?
But Clinton, just on a point of correction, I don't think the structure is changing. Personnel, I mean.
Well, the persons. But with new people coming in, you know, new managers will have, you know, new strategies, new ways of doing business and stuff. They will not be as let me look for the right word, as strong-willed as Ernest Hilaire, for example, and say, you know what, this is the system that we want to develop, and we'll stick to the plan. You know.
At the same time, when you talk about the leadership of cricket on the whole, the leadership of WIPA has changed as well, the Players Association.
It's true.
You know, different people come into different positions, and things happen. But the structures that have been put in place by the previous, in the last 3 years by the WICB, the West Indies Cricket Board has put things in place that I think are pretty much indelible. The future tours, our position in the future tours series is pretty much set. We know, I mean, for instance, we're going to Bangladesh in November/December. We should wall up them pretty handily. But yeah, our A team, our HPC are going to continue touring. HPC is going to remain in force. HPC ain't going. I mean, it's not like a government changing necessarily, where, you know, you have two parties that are. Nobody's going to just come and say, look, let's just stop the HPC.
No,
the
I mean,
HPC is going to stay.
I'm not
the
saying,
HPC is going to stay. 18 tours are going to stay. The fitness regime is going to stay.
I am not saying
Otis
that.
Gibson,
I'm not saying
Otis
immediately.
Gibson is not going to go anywhere. Richie Richardson is not going
I'm
to
not
go
saying
anywhere.
that it's going to change immediately, but I mean, over time, you can see, you know, some of the structures deteriorating. West Indies cricket was it? Was it 70s,
Yeah,
80s?
but we were it.
You know,
we were it in the absence
the
virtually of
structures,
structure.
yeah, the structures
we were it
Well,
because we were it mainly because of talent and not so much because of structure.
I take that. We had a lot of talent. However, there was structure to what we you know, the discipline was there, the commitment was there, the pride was there, you know, so that created in some sense some structure for the players. You know, they knew that they were black people going against the rest of the world, and they had to prove a point to the rest of the world. Most of the other cricketers were white, you know, so they had to distinguish themselves, and that was a kind of motivation for them to perform well, you know. But then right now, you know,
but it's environment. I mean, you had the Packer series. You had the fact that we had England to go and play in on a consistent basis. England, a lot of our players developed themselves in England, and partly again because of our talent and our style. You know, the English appreciated our style, and a lot of our players, even some of our lesser players, made their names in England,
Right.
and you know, their sons and grandsons.
Otis Gibson.
Otis Gibson is
Yeah.
one of the more recent ones, yeah, and the sons and grandsons of West Indies cricketers live in England and play for England. So you know, this was the time, but the times have changed, and I think we have now finally changed with the times, and we have adapted to the times, and the structures that we have in place right now, the fitness regime. I mean, these guys. Remember, we sent a player home last year because he didn't pass a fitness test. That was Hines. We sent Hines home last year from the Stanford, the last Stanford T20 against England, because he didn't pass a fitness test, and that was how Gary Matre got onto the West Indies team.
Yeah,
So
and
you know,
let
we
me
have
just bring,
structures.
Claudius in.
Yes, Clinton. So you indicated that we had ruled the world with the talent that we exhibited before, but you would also appreciate that thereafter we had a precipitous decline in terms of our results. And basically, you had a situation where the rest of the world overtook us and, you know, went way ahead. And I think what has been happening over the past couple of years or so is an attempt to bring us on par in terms of professionalizing the way we do things, as Ernest would suggest, putting the necessary systems in place. And I think what you're going to see in the medium term is that these structures would remain in place. And I think you're going to see this sort of stability in terms of performance on and off the field. We are all hoping that we'll get.
One of the things I think that
Hold that point. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll take you up on that point. And I also want to talk about Ernest, because I think that his presence in West Indies cricket did so much for us over the past 3 to 4 years. So stay with us. Newsmaker Live will continue right after this. We'll also be taking your calls after the break.